Hello learners and welcome to week 23. We are going to be submitting your final projects. So that's pretty exciting. So everything we've been working towards with the moral lessons and learning about all the atrocities, we are finally going to put everything together and submit the final projects. Okay, so you can see at the bottom, it's differentiating between acts of war and human rights violations and my moral lesson, which is where you picked a topic based on the four lessons that they gave you, talking about whether it was a human rights violation or just a simple act of war, and then you turn it into something where it presents a lesson that can be presented to a child. Okay, just like the other examples I've given you, you can go back and look at them from previous weekly instructional lessons. I try to, include the Dr. Seuss and some other ones to help you guys out so that you can get creative on your own. Okay, so the assignment, like I said, are these two. And so for differentiating between acts of war and human rights violations, you looked at all of the readings and you're going to fill out a paper. And then the moral lesson is you took all of those readings and trying to pull out a moral lesson that you feel comfortable then explaining. Okay, so again, I can successfully differentiate between acts of war and human rights violations. And again, the terms for the project. And I just want you to take a moment and think, what does it mean to be fully human? How is that different from just being alive or surviving? Okay, and we've learned about a lot of different incidences throughout this project where what does it mean to be fully human? And you're not just being alive or surviving. Okay, so think about all of the things that you've learned about. Okay, so I'm going to have you look at, read, and take notes on the article Human Rights. It was posted by the United Nations. And please pay particular attention to the definition of what human rights is according to the United Nations. You're going to watch the video Standing Up for Freedom from Amnesty International. As you watch the video, think about the struggles people have endured in their search for freedom that often many Americans take for granted. And you can also watch Morgan Freeman, very popular actor, was in one of my all-time favorite movies, Shawshank Redemption. Very great movie if you haven't seen it. Deals with freedom as well. And he talks about the power of words and what words can do. So when you're finished exploring, you can do the Quizlet flashcards on human rights. And then I want you to take a second and explain, as a human being, why is it important to understand what human rights you have or should have access to. So why is it important for you to fully understand what your rights are? Okay, and then again, there's a small quiz on human rights. Okay, so here are the final product. So final product number 1, how should we differentiate between acts of war and human rights violations when civilians are the target? So go through and start answering. How should we classify the rape of Nanjing? So go through and you can pull up your previous documents and kind of pull out information. Then there's some questions at the bottom. Then you take your information and answer, how should we differentiate between acts of war and human rights violations? So you're going to make an argumentative claim, pull some evidence, and then explain the evidence. Okay, so I want you to use the information that you have gathered for this project. Okay, so use examples, the London Blitz, the Japanese internment, these were this was this. This is a human rights violation because of this. So go into, a good argumentative claim, get your evidence, and then support it. Okay, now the final product number 2 is going to take some creativity. Okay, so you should have come up with a moral lesson. You should have submitted it to me where I either approved it or gave you some helpful suggestions on how to make it better. Okay, so you're going to make a physical version of the moral lesson. And they gave you examples before, like you could do a comic strip or a book or create some sort of video type thing. Okay, if you make a digital product of your moral lesson, educational experience, please copy and paste the URL. So obviously you have to give it to me somehow. If you make the physical version, you can maybe take some pictures of it or bring it to CPDLF. So I'm going to have to work with you before that. But before submitting, there's a list of things that you need to go through. explanation of different symbols that you're including. Like, I decided to include this because it represents this. The moral lesson, what historical event you selected, any thoughts you have on the importance of understanding history, the actual educational experience is what I need also that we will assess. So make sure that you do tell me all of these things right here, as well as including what you did. Okay, so if you need any help, reach out to me, but you're really just going to have to be creative with this. You're going to have to pull out a moral lesson from one of the 4 checkpoints that we did and get creative with your symbols. Okay, it symbolizes something. Use something to symbolize something else. And like I said, break it down for a child's point of view. It's not supposed to be scary, but it is supposed to tell a lesson. Just like the Velveteen Rabbit, okay? Just like the story where nobody spoke up last week, where they kept coming for the animals and nobody spoke up. Okay, that was a very good representation of the Holocaust. Nobody speaking up, and they just kept taking more and more people. Okay, so what new information have I learned from this lesson? And then this is just the description again of what you would be doing, the parts of the project, which we are on the last part. And your COG skills, like I said, argumentative claim, selection of evidence, explaining it, and then coming up with your a lesson from a child's learning experience. Okay, and then habit of success, resilience. Okay, how can we build resilience? And we've talked about this in the Connects You. When something happens to you, when you learn about something, how can you build up the resistance? Okay, so any questions or concerns, please reach out. Like I said, you're going to have to be very, very, very crafty. Okay, you're going to have to break out. You're artistic. You're going to have to do some real thinking. Okay, try to find that lesson and then try to think of how we can use some symbols, whether it's animals or something else within the story. And then, show the moral. Okay, child's perspective. A child could easily understand that nobody was speaking up for these animals in the woods, and then it was too late. It was a very good moral. It was a child's view, and you could understand it. Okay, so have a wonderful, productive week. And like I said, if you need anything, I'm here. Thanks. Bye.